The clatter of dishes and the low hum of conversation filled Bistro Lumiere, but all I could hear was the frantic pounding of my own heart. I clutched the tray of desserts, my knuckles white. Serving the city's elite for a year had taught me one crucial skill: to be a ghost, invisible, silent, efficient. But tonight my invisibility failed me. A sharp, frustrated cry cut through the dining room's murmur. A little boy, no more than 5, was pushing his plate away, his face a storm of unhappiness. The man opposite him, Mr. Valeriers, didn't seem to notice. Everyone knew that name, and everyone knew to look away. He was a fortress of a man, with a cool gaze that missed nothing and a reputation built on whispers of ruthless business takeovers. "Luca, eat your vegetables," he said, his voice a low, calm rumble that contrasted with the tension in his broad shoulders. The boy Luca just shook his head, his lower lip trembling. I shouldn't have been watching. I should have kept walking, delivered my desserts, and faded back into the background, but the boy's despair was a magnet. It was a look I knew all too well. Before I could think, I was kneeling beside his chair. "Hey there," I said softly, pointedly ignoring the sudden, heavy stillness that fell over their table. Mr. Valerius was now staring directly at me. I focused on the boy. You know, these broccoli are like little trees. Sometimes I make a forest on my plate before I eat it. Luca's teary eyes met mine, a flicker of curiosity in them. Mr. Valerius spoke, his voice like ice. "Is there an issue with the food?" I flinched, rising quickly. "No, sir, not at all. He seemed upset. "He misses his nanny," Mr. Valerius said, and for a split second, I saw a surprising exhaustion in his eyes. "She left rather abruptly last week." The words tumbled out of my mouth before I could stop them. "Maybe he just needs a distraction." I pulled a clean napkin and the pen from my apron. "Here, Luca," I said, offering them to the boy. "You can draw on this." He took the pen, his crying subsiding to sniffles as he focused on the blank napkin. Mr. Valerius watched me, his expression completely unreadable. "Your name." It wasn't a question. Isabelle Croft." He gave a curt nod. "Luca seems to have taken to you, Miss Croft." An hour later, my shift ended. As I stepped into the cold alley, heading for my beat-up sedan, headlights flared to life. A sleek, black town car idled where my car should have been. The back door opened, a bodyguard stepped out. "Miss Croft," he said, his voice flat. "Mr. Valerius would like a word." My throat tightened. Every instinct screamed to run, to get away from whatever this was. But my curiosity and something else I couldn't name won out. I got in the car. Mr. Valerius sat inside, the city lights glinting off his sharp features. "Luca hasn't engaged with anyone since his nanny left," he began without preamble. "He spoke to you. I'm offering you a position. Live-in nanny. Triple your current salary. Your own suite. All expenses covered." I was speechless. My mind was reeling. Why me? "You don't know me." He gave a slight, almost imperceptible smile. "I know you're 25, an art school graduate drowning in student debt. You live in a studio apartment with a leaky ceiling. You visit your sister in the hospital every Sunday." He paused, letting the words sink in. "You're kind, and Luca responded to you." That's all I need to know. It was an invasion, a clear display of power that should have terrified me. But the thought of that little boy, so sad and alone in his huge, empty world, tugged at my heart. One trial day I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper, "With Luca, then I decide." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Agreed." The next day, Mr. Valerius Kale, he insisted, and Luca picked me up. We didn't go to a park. We went to a science museum, which he'd arranged to be closed to the public just for us. Luca, holding my hand, pointed silently at the giant dinosaur skeletons. He didn't smile, but he was engaged, his small hand trusting in mine. It was a start. Over gelato later, Kale watched us. "He hasn't held anyone's hand since." "Well, in a long time. He's a wonderful boy," I said, and I truly meant it. "And your decision?" Kale's intense gaze was fixed on me, waiting. I looked at Luca, who was carefully, almost surgically, eating his ice cream. I thought of my crushing debt, my tiny apartment, the dead-end jobs. But mostly I thought of the small, warm hand that had just been in mine. "I'll do it." Life in the Valerius penthouse was a world of silent luxury and unspoken rules. My suite was larger than my entire apartment building. Luke and I fell into a comfortable routine of drawing, reading, and visits to the private park Kale had access to. Our evenings often ended with a debrief with Kale on my private terrace. Our conversations started about Luca, but slowly they unfurled into talks about art, history, and our pasts. I learned about the mother he lost young, the father who built the empire he now controlled. He learned about my dreams of being an artist, the sister I cared for so deeply. One night, after putting a much happier Luca to bed, I found Kale on the terrace, staring out at the city. He asked me if I was going to stay forever. I said softly. Kale turned, and for the first time, his usual mask was completely gone. "And what did you tell him?" he asked, his voice low. I told him I wasn't going anywhere. The air between us shifted, suddenly charged and heavy. Kale ... what are we doing? He closed the distance between us in 2 long strides. "I think you know, Isabelle." His hand came up to cradle my cheek, his touch surprisingly gentle. "I've spent my life building walls. You and Luca ... You walked right through them." His lips met mine, not with demand, but with a question. And I answered with my whole heart. It wasn't simple. Kale's world still had shadows. There were late-night calls, men in sharp suits with cold eyes who visited the penthouse, a business I knew operated in gray areas. But he kept his promise to me. Our home was a sanctuary, a bubble of peace. And I began to see him change, slowly shifting his enterprises, stepping more and more into the light. "For us," he said. One evening, a year later, Luca was showing Kale a drawing. "It's us," he said, pointing at 3 brightly colored stick figures, Papa, Isabelle, and me. "We're a family." Kale's eyes met mine over our son's head, and they were filled with a love so profound it stole my breath. He knelt down. "Yes, we are." He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket and looked up at me, his powerful gaze now vulnerable. "Isabelle, make it official." "Marry me." Tears streamed down my face as I nodded, unable to speak. Luca cheered, throwing his arms around both of us in a group hug. We were married in the museum where we'd spent our first day together, surrounded by dinosaur bones and constellations. Luca stood beaming between us, our proud ring bearer. Life moved forward. Kale left the darkest parts of his business behind for good, focusing on his legitimate ventures. I turned a sunroom in the penthouse into an art studio and started teaching children's classes, with Luca as my most enthusiastic student. One quiet night, as we stood on the terrace where he'd first kissed me, watching our son sleep through the glass, Kale held me close. "You saved us, Isabelle," he whispered into my hair. I leaned back, looking at the man who had traded a fortress for a family. "No," I said softly, touching his face. "We saved each other, and in the quiet, under the blanket of city stars, our little family, built from the most unlikely of beginnings, was finally completely whole." The powerful man who commanded boardrooms now built pillow forts, and the artist who once struggled to pay her rent had found her greatest masterpiece, a life filled with love. Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more. We'll see you in the next one.